Center. So let me welcome you all. We are delighted you are here. This is a very, very important workshop, which the inspiration came out of Congressman Higgins' office, working in collaboration with another elected official out of Lackawanna. And it's a great idea. It's basically, we're going to talk about today your checklist of all the things you need in order to apply successfully for funding, no matter what the funding source is. I'll reintroduce that again when I introduce Marilyn. But the first thing I did want to do officially is mention that Greg Lindberg is on today. Greg, you have your picture visible, I hope. We have multiple pages here, so I want to thank Greg for being with us. He is our partner with the United States Small Business Administration. We call Greg every day. He has been one of our go-tos in terms of any issues that we have pertaining to federal funding, which is vast, and the variety of funding sources that have been available are very important. So Greg, please wave to everyone. And we appreciate that you're here this morning. I want to thank you very, very much. Okay. It is my pleasure to have with us Congressman Brian Higgins, whom I just must tell you is the very best representative for us in Western New York. He has been fighting the battle for us in Congress since about 2005. The man does not give up. He's tireless, and as is his team, whom I adore them also. I love the people that were Bonnie King Lockwood and Teresa Kennedy and Chris Fahey. Brian is just a superstar. The Buffalo News at one point named him the very best elected official that we've ever had. He continues to hold that magnificent title. And I always like to mention, because we at Buffalo State, the Small Business Development Center, we are part of Buffalo State College. He is one of our most famous graduates. So we're very excited that he graduated from Buffalo State College. Thank you. And went on to study at Harvard. He has a very impressive background. What I just want to mention, without going through everything, you should check him out online, all of Brian's background. The next thing I wanted to mention is that since COVID started around March 17th, for us, the impact on us in Western New York, he and his office have been literally partners of the Small Business Development Center, encouraging us, supplying us with additional funding, and contacting us almost daily to make sure that we are connecting with all of the citizens in Western New York who have need entrepreneurial assistance during COVID. This has been incredibly important, and our ability to direct people to the right resources, to assist them with the right resources, is very much a result of Congressman Brian Higgins' effort, work, and assistance during this very difficult time. So with tremendous enthusiasm and admiration, let's welcome, if you want to unmute for a moment, now is the time to welcome and applaud Congressman Brian Higgins.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Brian, thanks for your work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sue, first of all, let me thank you. I was thinking before I got on today, you've been at this for a long time. I think, our friendship goes back to the Buffalo City Council days.
It does. It does.
Yeah. And, not only have you and your counselors been a great resource to my office and to our mutual constituents, I just want to tell you that I love what you do, but I love the way that you do it.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you have a great sense of enthusiasm and purpose. And, when people interface with your office, they're looking for help, and attitude is a big part of that. And they're going to be comfortable if they feel welcomed. And you have not changed. Your group, Buffalo State College, continues to do a great job as a valuable resource in this time of pandemic, but for many, many years before it, and I'm hoping many years after it. The idea, as Sue had mentioned at the outset, came from a conversation our office had with City of Lackawanna Councilman John Ingram, another man of good deeds and good purpose, who suggested it would be helpful to share a how-to informational seminar to help the small business community, because the small business community has been hit harder than any other sector in our economy. So the purpose of our event here is to help position small businesses to be ready. And it's important that you get ready now, because I believe strongly, as I mentioned to Sue at the very beginning, that Congress for the next 8 to 12 weeks is going to be working harder than it ever has to enact the Biden-Harris agenda, which is simple, straightforward, about helping businesses, about helping individuals, about helping this economy recover. Because, we have here an acute public health crisis for which, up until 2 months ago, we had no treatment, we had no vaccine. The best thing that our healthcare system could do for somebody that was stuck with COVID-19 and its debilitating effects is to give them Tylenol to help reduce fever and to help reduce pain. That should never happen again. That should never happen again. So we have to correct, we have to fix, we have to get out front of this lethal virus that is highly contagious before we can even think about economic recovery. So the 1.9 trillion Biden relief bill is all about helping people get through the pandemic. We have a lot more work to do after this bill. As you probably read, a group of bipartisan members went to the White House to talk with President Biden about their alternative bill. Well, it's inadequate at best. And I'm all for unity. I'm all for working together, but I'm all for giving the American people the relief that they need and an amount that will help them and also stabilize our economy so we can eventually grow. What's included in the bill? Well, it's $465 billion in direct pay to individuals, stimulus checks, if you will. Why is that important? We have a $22.5 trillion economy, annual economy in the United States. It is 70% consumption. The service industry in this pandemic has been devastated. And what people have shifted to is buying goods. If you have Amazon stock, you're probably doing well. And I needn't tell any of you all the Amazon trucks that we saw over the past several months and continue to see, because people are buying things. But what they're not doing is purchasing services, and that's hurt our economy. So that money, again, 70% of the economy is consumption, will go to create a demand that is not currently there. So that will go a long way to, again, stabilizing the economy so that once we're beyond this pandemic, we can begin to grow. $350 billion in unemployment insurance. This is a supplement on top of what the states provide those who qualify for unemployment insurance. And there's a dispute going on now, and we're hoping to get by that. But, the Biden-Harris plan is adequate relative to providing benefits, not for a month, not for 2 months, but through September, so that, we don't have to keep going back at this and trying to do more. And you know how difficult it is to get these bills passed. There's also $350 billion for state and local governments. That's critically important because the states and localities provide a lot of services, a lot of funding for things like higher education, for business assistance, for those kinds of things. And they've taken a major hit, both on the revenue side, because sales tax revenues support the budgets of both the state and local governments, but also on the service side as well. So we're looking at $170 billion to reopen schools, which is very, very important. We're looking at $160 billion for direct pandemic response. That is very important to make sure that our first responders, our healthcare providers are adequately equipped to keep themselves safe, but also to help the people that we all love and know have been through this, the difficulty of this disease. It hits people with different levels of severity, but too many Americans have died. Too many Americans have been afflicted with this, and we don't even begin to know the residual damage, the collateral damage of having had COVID-19. And now they're looking at liver problems, they're looking at heart problems, they're looking at potentially problems with the brain. So all of this continues. So it's important that that money be there. We also have $120 billion for a child tax credit that could reduce child poverty by 50%. We're also looking at $140 billion for nutrition, for transit, and for our veterans. We're looking at $50 billion for small businesses, $40 billion for childcare, $35 billion for rental assistance, and $4 billion for an emerging public health crisis, which is mental health. The new Surgeon General, he said, the biggest public health problem in America today, it's not diabetes, it's not heart disease, it's not cancer, it's chronic loneliness, and it's suicide, it's opioid addiction. Opioid addiction is a slow form of suicide. We have to find a way to develop a better moral education, a better moral language to speak to one another, to talk about our mutual concerns, but also our mutual aspirations. And in the end, we are an economy, we are a nation that provides help to those who need it, but also asks those who are capable of helping those who are in need. And that is the great tradition of this country. The whole world has looked to America for so many years for inspiration. And just kind of on a sad, but kind of a compelling note, our relationship with Canada has taken a major hit over the past 12 months. Very adversarial, no engagement about a mutual strategy to get the border open, but there were other issues as well. And Sue and all of you know how critically important the Canadian economy, shopper, user of the airport, arts and culture. Canadians spend $15 million a year in healthcare services in Buffalo and Western New York, and we help their economy as well. And there was a Canadian journalist who said that for her entire career, she had her face pressed up against the window, watching America and Americans in awe. And during this pandemic, and the poor handling of it, and the adversarial nature of it, she said that she pulled the shades and closed the curtain. And I just think that we are in a position now to come back stronger, so that that shade will be opened again, that curtain will be opened, and Canadians will look at Americans again with a great sense of awe, because we have done things that no other country in the world has been able to do, despite our problems. But as I mentioned again to Sue at the beginning, this pandemic has exposed a lot of vulnerabilities, a lot of inequities in our healthcare system, in our economic system. And I think we have to fix those things. I think Buffalo can be greener, can be healthier, can be more pedestrian friendly, can be more bike friendly in post-pandemic times. So I think while we have suffered and our people have suffered, I think it also lays a basis from which all of us can be better sons and daughters of the nation and help our communities grow with a vision that is inclusive, a vision of harmony, and a vision of opportunity for all of our people. So with that, I'll do whatever you want me to do here. So I'll take questions, or if you just want me to move out so you can continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. I so appreciate this and your presentation. I think we all, everyone, I want you all to applaud. I know you don't get to feel that full love that you get in a live situation. I must say, we are just so impressed and appreciate your courage, your persistence, and your leadership in this very challenging time. Just so
Thank you.
appreciate it. I'm loath not to take questions, but I also feel that for purposes of time for the presentation, if that would be
Sure.
all right, are you okay with that? We certainly could forward any questions to you that people can put forward on the chat. Is that what we're agreeing? I'm looking at my colleagues, Marilyn and Karina, who are running the program. We'll do that. So we're gonna proceed in that direction, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, Sue. Thank you very much. And to the
You're
Buffalo
welcome.
State College Small Business Development Center and all the wonderful people that you have helping businesses under your enthusiastic and effective leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. We're grateful. Thank you very much for your support.
Enjoy the
Thank
day.
you. Okay, health
Bye.
to you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much. Terrific, everyone. And now moving. That was fantastic. Thank you. I just want to mention again that on behalf of my team at the Buffalo State Small Business Development Center, of which several are on today, and again, now I do not see everyone's pretty faces as usual, but if folks could please wave. We've got Karina Larea with the Small Business Development Center, Michael McCarley, dear Michael. I'm going to introduce Marilyn in just a second. I saw Mauricio Canton Diaz, and I saw Michael McCarley. Max McCardiman, excuse me, and Max McCardiman. And thank you for anyone else from the team that's on that I just didn't happen to see your pretty face. So thank you so much. At the Small Business Development Center, we do provide one-to-one confidential counseling. We welcome you all to take advantage of that. And we are able to provide that very valuable service to you at no charge because of the support from Greg Lindbergh, Small Business Administration, the support of Congressman Higgins, and the support of the New York State Legislature and the leadership in the state. So we hope you take advantage of that. Next, I'm looking to Marilyn and Karina if I'm off at all in terms of the plan. My next thing I'd like to do is introduce Marilyn. Are we good? Am I on the right agenda? Okay, good, thank you. Our presenter this morning, Marilyn Roach, is an esteemed business advisor with the New York State Small Business Development Center, an important member of our team here at Buffalo State College. She has been awarded as one of the best, and at one time, the best business advisor in New York State. We're very proud of that. She has a very strong background in both accounting and marketing. Unusual and very beneficial to all of you. And Marilyn will be presenting this morning the nuts and bolts, I'd like to call it, of what you need in order to proceed effectively to secure funding. And I do want to mention that part of the inspiration for this workshop is because of the fluidity and the situation we are in right now, which is so often funding opportunities come up, it feels like for 10 minutes. Okay, I exaggerate, but funding opportunities seem to come very quickly right now. Hey, ask Greg Lindbergh, who's on the call, is on our program today. They come and then all of a sudden they're gone. That's not the case normally with lending situations. As a result of that, we need for all of you to have your stuff ready. This is that, get your stuff ready for the next opportunity that comes down the pike, because you can bet, based on what we heard from Congressman Higgins, there's going to be more opportunities that are going to be before all of you. So if we can have you ready to go when something happens, you're not going to be coming back and saying, I didn't have time. I could never pull this off. We want you to pull it off. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Ms. Marilyn Roach, thank you very much for presenting this morning. We give her the microphone. The rest of us, including myself, are going mute and give the screen to Marilyn. Hey, Marilyn.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Sue. And, it was an inspiring speech from Representative Higgins. It was very exciting. So it is my pleasure to be part of this today. Like Sue said, we all struggled in March of 2020 when the economic injury disaster loan money came through and the advances came through, and there were so many people who weren't ready, who unfortunately some missed out. I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second. Hopefully this is all going to be, the technology is going to work. Okay, Can everybody see my PowerPoint? Karina, am I on task? Okay.
Yes.
So this is all about funding readiness. I'm going to give you, hopefully, a really good overview of everything that you need to put into a folder and keep on your desktop so that you always have access. So let's see, there we go. I want to talk a little bit about what else is required when you're going to go for funding, okay? Because I know I heard earlier today somebody is going for SBA loan, and I know that everybody in this crowd is at a different level, so let's just cover it a little bit. In addition to having all your records in order, you need to have your business and your personal in order, okay? Credit score is really critical, and I can't tell you how many people have been hit this year with credit scores dropping. It seems like there is more flexibility in some of these grants and opportunities that you can have a little lower credit score than you had in the past. But if you don't know your credit score, find it out. It's really very important. It goes to the character of the person to pay your bills. They need to know that, okay? Capacity. If you're asking for a loan, can you pay it back? That's part of what we do. We do a cash flow projection, making sure that the money that's coming in is going to cover the money that's going out, including servicing that debt. So capacity is really very important when we're talking about getting credit. Capital, all right? In almost every situation, the business owner needs to contribute to the funding. I mean, in every situation. Some of the grants aren't asking for that, but in the life that we lived before COVID, at least 10% of the capital had to come from the owner. So you don't want to be naive and looking for $200,000 in a loan when you don't have $20,000 in your pocket, okay? And it's a planning process. Collateral, now not everybody has to have a house with lots of equity, but you do need to know that if you're looking for a loan, that the equipment that you're putting is going to be collateral against it and your personal collateral as well. And then we do want to look at the conditions of the loan. Now, the economic injury disaster loan was an incredible opportunity at 3.75% over 30 years. So when we did an amortization table or a payback schedule, it was affordable. But that's not how most loans are. They might be over 5 or 7 years. So we have to do a projection of how much will that payment be every month. It goes back to the capacity, how much you can pay. So if you ever heard about those 5 C's or 4 C's of credit, this is what they are, okay? I do want to say that we are going to stop for questions and answers after a couple of screens, okay? Give me like maybe 2 screens at a time because they do kind of blend together. At least I hope they do. So here we go. This is what everybody's been wanting to know. So let's talk about the first documentation that you need to have. Every business, if you're not using your own personal name, needs to have either a DBA, doing business as a sole proprietor, a DBA as a partnership, or you can choose to be a limited liability company or a corporation. So there's basically, let's just say 4 things: DBA, partnership, LLC, corporation. All of those require documentation unless, like I said before, I'm starting a business called Marilyn Roach. But if I start a business called Marilyn Roach Enterprises or Marilyn Roach Services or Marilyn Roach, the best business advisor in the world, then we have to have a DBA, okay? I was joking about the last one. I know everybody's muted and I hope you all chuckled. So we need to have a DBA. It's done very simply. If you're in the county of Erie, you apply to Erie County. Now we have to do everything by mail. But you'll get a business certificate, $35, and you are in business, okay? That business certificate it's going to be a hard copy. You need to scan it and put it in a file. And I would recommend, if you're so inclined, to use these titles that I'm giving. Okay, so business entity documentation. Okay, when you sign up for your DBA or you file with the Department of State for an LLC or a corporation, you will get a certificate of organization or articles of incorporation. That is the proof that you are in business. And every single lender, every single funder is going to ask for proof. So that's number one that you need to have. Now, we always recommend, even when you're a DBA, to get an employer identification number from the IRS. There is no cost to that. In fact, let me just tell you cost again. DBA is $35, limited liability, and a corporation is going to be about between $200 and $250 to file. Okay. And then with an LLC, you do have to have publications. So that raises it to about $400. But an IRS EIN costs you nothing. And that becomes your identification number in lieu of your Social Security. Now you can choose as a DBA to just use your Social Security, but we recommend you get an EIN. That too comes in a printable form. Again, you can print it, you can scan it, you can put it in the file. But if you choose to use your Social Security number, all of us have that little card, you want to do the same thing, okay? You cannot use your Social Security number with an LLC or a corporation. So that little box that I have it to the side that says State of New York, Department of State, that's actually the corporate seal, okay? It's a document like that, very simple, that you're going to put into your folder, okay? And you do want to have your certificate of organization, articles of incorporation, and your DBA certificate, one of whichever one applies to you, okay? So that again is your identity as a business, and we need to prove that. But coming with the identity of the business is your banking. Your banking is critical. When we did the economic injury disaster loan, we needed to put into that application your routing number, your account number, and so many people, unfortunately, transposed those. So I made it really simple. Here's your check. The first digits are your routing number. The longer digits is your account number. So many times, the bank wants a voided check because they want to make sure that you've got that correct, okay? So you need to have the name of your bank. It's really important to have a branch number if you can, okay? It's just like when you go to the doctor and they want to, you go to the hospital, they want to know your doctor's address. It's the same thing, bank number, branch address, your routing number, your account number, and of course, just get a voided check, because this way you're not confusing the routing and account number. And I'm sure that Greg can attest to this. Unfortunately, that was one of the problems that we had, and that was causing delays and denials in your bank, in the loan issuance. It's important to keep your bank statements. Now, in this digital world, you can keep everything digital or you can keep it printed. But the bank statement to me is critical for many, many reasons. It's one, it's going to show you what your cash on hand is at all times. And I'll show you later in the presentation, we were able to construct, for many people who did not have financial records, their financial records from their bank statements when they use their bank appropriately, okay? So we want to make sure that we always have our bank statements. And of course, if you don't have them, you can request them from the bank, but that again delays time, and time is really of the essence. I'll go back to the economic injury disaster loan. When there was the advance was the grant that you received $1,000 per employee. The grant ran out. So if you didn't get your finances together or your paperwork together on time, you lost an opportunity. Now I'll talk about that later because there is some opportunity in the future, but right now it's really important to say, why wouldn't I act immediately? And if I have my information, I can. So the bank statements are important for keeping your records, but also to build a cash flow statement or financial records if you haven't done so up to this point. If you have an existing loan, whether it be with the SBA or a personal loan from a family member, PPP, we need to have those loan agreements. Again, how much you're paying, how much is outstanding. This would be showing on your balance sheet. It'll be on your personal financial statement. And so we need to have those all in agreement. So far I've got 2 files that we would keep. The first one is going to be your business entity file that will have all your legal documentation. The second would be your banking. And this would be, I mean, I'm assuming most people just have a business checking account, but if you have a business savings account, you want to have both of those in one folder. I think this might be a time that we could take questions if anybody has any. Karina?
Marlene, we have 2 questions. One comes from Vicky, and she's saying, recent grants and COVID loans have required beginning 1 year in business, right? Does that mean that the date of the DBA Corporation LLC was formed, or when they began doing commerce? This has been confusing to many small businesses.
Well, it is very confusing, and we have to look at the regulations for whoever is issuing that grant or that loan, and they should have a detail of what they're defining as being in business. So let's put it this way. You get your DBA in 2019, and you've done nothing with it. You haven't filed a tax return. You haven't been in commerce. And then you really start your business in 2020 in February. Now, I guess you can say, well, I had my DBA in 2019, but there was no tax return and there was no revenue generated. In my mind, if there wasn't a clear definition, I would say it's when you started in commerce. But I can't give a blanket answer to that because it really is defined by the lender. I'm sorry, that was not a good answer, but that's the best I can do.
Thank you, Marilyn. There's another question from Alexandra. Does this need to be separate banking account for the company and not personal banking? Correct?
Oh, it is such a great question, and I'm glad you said it. And I apologize that I didn't talk about it at this point. I do talk about it later. Yes, you need to keep separate records. In fact, the way I built this in my mind was how we advise our clients step by step. The first thing you do is you get your business entity and you get your EIN. And the second thing you do is open up a business bank account in the name of the business, using the LLC, the S Corp name or the DBA, and the EIN number, okay? So you do want to keep everything separate from your personal. This is the way you can keep track of your business assets as opposed to your personal assets, okay? That's how you're gonna keep all your records. Mm-hmm. Thank you for those questions. You have another?
Nope, those are the questions that we have so far. And we have one coming up. We operate as an LLC with 6 members. When you were speaking of credit score, do you mean personal scores or companies have a credit score? That's from Courtney.
It's very difficult to get a credit score for your business. You have to be in business for a long time, get a DUNS number, and get operating. So really, we're talking about the individuals. And anybody who's owning more than 20% is going to have an influence on the credit score. Okay.
Thank you. That's what we have so far. So you can keep going.
So here we go. Business versus personal. All right. It's very important. The bank or lenders are going to want to look at your personal, again, going back to that credibility and capacity. And then they're going to obviously want to look at the business tax returns. Okay. So let's just talk about business right now. All right. You're going to have state and federal tax returns. If you've been in business for over 3 years, they're going to want 3 years. If you've been in business for 2, then both. Okay. If you've been in business for less than a year and you don't have a tax return, then we're going to just do some financial projections. Okay. But a tax return is critical. Again, this was a problem with so many of those individuals who were seeking financing in March for COVID funding from the SBA when they didn't have a tax return ready for 2019 because of the timing, and didn't have a tax return ready for 2018 because they just never did it. Okay. And so it's critical that you always have a tax return done. If you are a DBA or an LLC, you need to do a Schedule C, which is a profit and loss for business activity for a sole proprietor, okay? Then you would take that profit and loss, and there's a line 31, it's the last line, shows your profit and loss, and that goes onto your 1040. So technically, you are the business. When you're a DBA and an LLC, it's just transferred directly to your personal tax return. If you're an S Corp, you have to do a separate tax return. But the bottom line is, you can't get funding if you don't have a tax return for the prior year and you were in business, okay? Which also lends to the determination of when you were in business. So the tax return is proof of being in business, even if you have an operating loss, okay? So state and federal, quarterly sales tax, okay? If you are a vendor that is responsible for collecting sales tax, these are quarterly sales tax filings, and you need to have proof of that, okay? You cannot be in default. You can't be in default of your taxes, state, federal, or you're not going to get funding, okay? Payroll records, this is all the PPP, okay? So you need to have your quarterly payroll records and then your annual summary. Right now, the quarterlies are working, okay? If you are a LLC or a sole proprietor and you don't have payroll because you're one person, you can use your Schedule C for PPP because that'll show the profit that's been generated that's transferring to the owner. If you're an S Corp, as an owner, you are an employee. You need to have your payroll records. And those of you who don't want to put people on payroll, it's being short-sighted. First of all, there's a big difference between having an employee and having an independent contractor, and the IRS is very strict about that. But paying your employees on a regular basis, having your taxes removed, having this done by a payroll company, it's not expensive, it's a cost of doing business, is great record keeping, very important, and will get you a higher caliber employee. So payroll records. Then we're going to talk about business and personal property taxes, okay? It may or not affect you. You may or not have property taxes, but if you own property, you need to have those taxes. And then we have to have our personal tax return. So in the situation, if you're a DBA or an LLC, the Schedule C goes right to the personal tax return. It's kind of one and the same, but you need to have that. And recently, there's been some question about family income and proof of dependency, and if you're classified as a family that's in financial need. So it's very important to have your proof of family income and the number of dependencies. That's coming up soon and something else. So I've added that where I never had that in there before. So 3 years, okay? I think I'm gonna stop on this one because I think we might have some questions. Is this one getting people?
We do have questions. So Curtis is asking, would you advise a first-time business owner to do their own taxes or seek professional help when generating revenue?
Okay. Well, I always think that, you know, I don't color my own hair and, you know, I don't fix my refrigerator when it breaks, okay? I think it's really important to go to a professional to get things done properly. But if you don't have the money, if you don't have the time, then you're going to have to know how to prepare some of this on your own, okay? You should always understand how to read a financial statement and how to kind of put some things together. That's not for this topic, but I definitely think it is worth doing. You know, TurboTax does a pretty nice job, but you got to know the information that's going in there. So we just had something with EG Tax. They did a beautiful presentation for us. They're so knowledgeable. They're going to save you money in the long run. If not them, somebody else. So I would go with a professional.
Thank you. A second question. As a raw startup, we are self-financing, but soon need to raise grant or angel investing. How do we fund product development when we are pre-revenue?
business plan. Without a solid business plan, you're not going to raise money. Okay. And, you know, I just want to say right now, because of COVID, there is some grants. Without COVID, there weren't grants. Okay. And so I don't want you to hang your hat on that. Private investors are going to look at your growth opportunity. They're going to look at their return on investment. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is by having a good business plan and financial projections. Can I go on?
That's what we have so far. You can keep going.
Okay. I have this slide here, and I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about sales tax, but sales tax can ruin a business if you don't handle things properly. This is something that you could read on your own and understand. There are 4 dates for sales tax remittance. When you collect sales tax for the government, it is collecting it for them. This isn't your funds. So you do want to make sure that if you're starting to collect a lot of money, that you put it in a separate bank account so that you don't use that money for your business, so that you have the money to remit on the quarter. Okay. I'm not going to spend any time with this, but I put it in here so that if you have the slides, you can look at it later. Financial statements. This to me is the crux of your business. All right. This is what's going to help you with your tax return. This is what's going to help you with understanding what you can borrow, what you can pay back. It's critical. Okay. Every business should have a balance sheet, an income statement, and a cash flow statement. Okay. Whether you've been in business for 1 month, 3/4 of a year, 5 years. Okay. In your balance sheet, this is what's going to show your assets and your liabilities. And right there, owner's equity is the difference between the assets and the liabilities. You have more assets than liabilities, you've got owner's equity. But capital contribution is critical, okay? Goes back to when I was saying that a bank is going to want you to put 10% in at a minimum. That's the capital contribution that you put into your business. So the balance sheet is important. Your income statement. When we did the economic injury disaster loan, people didn't understand the difference between cost of goods sold and supply expense. And you need to understand this because that's how the SBA determined what your loan was going to be. So an income statement, revenue, less cost of goods sold if you're producing something, less your expenses comes to your profit and loss. Okay. And that's what goes on to that Schedule C at the end of the year. That's what goes into your tax return. And that's what you should be watching on a regular basis to make sure your cost of goods sold are fitting within trends and whatnot, okay? Cash flow. This to me is what we would, this is critical. This goes back to saving those bank statements and opening a separate bank account. When you open up a separate bank account and you keep that one for all your transactions, every dollar that comes into your business goes into that bank account, even if it's cash. Bear with me, okay? Every penny that comes out of the business should go through either direct withdrawal or debit cards, okay? Or if you withdraw cash, you gotta keep track of what that cash is for. And if you do it that way, okay, you can reconstruct your balance sheet and your income statement because your cash flow is king. It directs all of your activity for the year, okay? Again, this is not the time to be going through this, but when you keep your personal and your banking separate, personal and your business banking separate, okay, at any point in time, you can say, oh, I've got $200 still in my business bank account. Oops, I have $50 that has to go to New York State for sales tax, so that's only $150. But I've got some bills coming. I can't take that cash out. If you combine the two, you're going to be drawn from your personal, thinking that your business has money, and it just gets things muddy. Okay, so you do want to keep everything very, very separate, and have a bookkeeping system that works for you. Those in business that had QuickBooks were able to run a report, and that report showed the interim, let's call it the like just a snapshot of where you were at that time. Okay, if you don't have a bookkeeping system like that, The bank statements are going to work for you. We have templates that we can share with you. And I had a couple of clients that had not kept track of their finances the entire year of 2019 and did not want to lose an opportunity. I had a barber that was in a situation like this, hadn't kept track. I mean, he was doing everything he was supposed to be doing, but he just didn't keep track. The money comes out, he can't be in business, he can't apply because he doesn't have a tax return, he didn't have his financials. And the way we were able to do it is working really fast by looking at his bank statements, putting everything together. He filed his tax return, and then we were able to go for the funding. But we were lucky because economic injury disaster loan funding lasted a long time. Some of these others have like a 90-day window, a 30-day window, or even worse, a 30-day window to spend the money. So if you don't know what you've got and what you need, where your income statement is showing higher expenses, where you could spend that money, how do you make an informed decision about how much money you need, and how do you prove to the lender that you need that kind of money? I think I'm going to stop here because I'm sure there's questions about financial statements.
Yes, you are correct. So the first one comes from Amir. How do you prepare financial statements? Who should prepare them?
Okay, so again, I think that internally, it's not difficult to prepare these financial statements if you have a software program like a QuickBooks or a Peachtree, or there's a million programs out there. I mean, if it depends on what kind of business you have, you might use Square, and Square can give you your financial reports. Again, it's what you put in is what you get out, right? So it's possible for you to do all this yourself if you're diligent. And if you're not, if it's just, you've got the right brain going, you don't have the left brain going, then you need to have somebody do this for you. Do you hire somebody as an employee to do it? No. Your businesses are probably too small to support a bookkeeper full time. But you can get a monthly bookkeeper to come in and to go through everything and make sure everything is reconciled with your bank account. And a monthly bookkeeper is not going to cost you that much money. And I think it's well worth it, again, to manage your expenses properly. A bookkeeper who's independent, who comes in, can look at things, because that bookkeeper, he or she may work with 10 other businesses, maybe even more, and look at this and say, your expenses are off. You're spending way too much money for X, Y, and Z. That in itself could help you, okay? So I do think that it's important that if you don't have that ability, you hire somebody, but you don't have to hire an employee to do that. I would definitely get a consultant who that's all they do, okay?
Excellent. Next question from Janique. It's so hard to determine how much to pay in taxes quarterly if you cannot predict what your income is going to be. What do you suggest?
Okay, so you're talking about your estimated taxes from earnings. Okay. That's a hard one. It really is a hard one. And speaking from somebody who was self-employed, I did that. And I can only tell you how I handled it, okay? Each quarter, I would look at what my earnings were, and I would project, gee, was this a good quarter, or is this going to be indicative of what my other 3 quarters are going to be? And then I would say, I'm just going to make life simple and so it was $10,000 for the quarter, okay? And I'm thinking that might be what it's going to be for the rest of the year. So $40,000 is what I'm estimating. I would go to the IRS website and I would look at $40,000 with one dependent, and this is what my tax bill should be. So then you do that. Then the next quarter, you're down, okay? You adjust down. All right, it's kind of a game. The IRS does not want you to owe more than 30% of your taxes at the end of the year. So you've got some wiggle room. And I don't think that, unless you're making in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, I don't think that you'd get yourself in trouble if you kind of do what I did by looking at each quarter and kind of projecting, am I up, am I down? And looking at it that way. The IRS has some great information about earnings and percentages.
Thank you. Then the next question is related. Is saving 35% for taxes is sufficient?
That's pretty high. Again, that would be at the top number of earnings. Again, somebody who's generating $40,000 in profit that on their DBA that they're moving over to their 1040. I mean, you know, obviously you're going to have deductions and whatnot. So 15 to 20% would be okay on that. Again, you have to look at the charts.
Right. And then from Fastinia, I am so frustrated with picking the right bank because all of the fees and hidden fees. People keep suggesting using a credit union. What would you suggest? Any reaction for the best recommendation, sorry, for the best business bank in Buffalo, Western York?
Ooh, that's a hard one. So first of all, credit unions don't do business bank accounts, as far as I know. I think that would be a personal. So what I would look at is one, do they charge for a monthly checking? I know that there's a few that don't. Bank on Buffalo, Evans, Northwest, there may be more. Those are just at the top of my head. Do not charge for monthly checking accounts. Karina? Am I right on that one?
Yeah, I think you're correct.
But say you have your personal at M&T and you've got a great relationship with M&T, then go to M&T. I mean, you need to go where you have a comfort level. You can interview them just like anybody else. But if you're going to go for a business loan, you're definitely going to want to open up your bank account for your business where you're going for a business loan. Okay, so that's really important. And just so you know, not all banks are offering business loans right now. Okay.
Thank you, Marilyn. Eric asks, as a startup in the pro forma, is the pro forma cash flow projection sufficient for applying for an SBA loan?
So if you're applying for an SBA loan, you need to have 3 years of monthly cash flow, 3-year pro forma, and a balance sheet opening and closing. Okay. That is what our office does. That is primarily one of the biggest things that Karina and myself and Mauricio and Michael, we all do. And so you do want to look at 3 years projection. Now that's kind of hard, having a crystal ball, but we have to be reasonable and we have to have a strategy. Okay, so you know it's going to be based on what your business plan says, how many new clients you're going to get per year, and your growth. And Eric, I think was the franchise. We would look at historical franchise numbers for something like that.
Thank you. And then Judith asks, banks said they ran out of money for the lending. Is this true?
Again, so every bank is individual, and now so we know that there's been a couple loan programs or grant programs that have come out. Those have all been tapped. The EIDL, the economic injury disaster loan, is not out of money. The PPP is not out of money, and I don't think that the banks are out of money. They may be out of interest in some areas.
Probably. That's it. Yep. And I think that's what we have so far.
Okay, great. So certifications. Okay, this is another documentation that you need to have on file. Whether you're 8A, whether you have your MWBE, whether you're disabled, service disabled, all these wonderful certifications that are out there that can help you keep a file. Okay. Mauricio is the expert on this. I am not the expert on this, but we do know that you just don't call yourself a minority business owner without moving forward and getting certification. Well, you can call yourself that, but if you want to get some extra funding or be, the word's not coming to me, get on a procurement list or to have preferential treatment because of your status, you need to have these on file. So again, you'd have your business entity, you'd have your banking, you'd have your financials, and you'd have your certifications. These would be files that I would keep on my desktop under corporate entity. Okay. So there's a lot of miscellaneous stuff, okay? And we've been finding this out as we've been going, because this year has been so unusual. And I have to give Michael McCarley some kudos on this, because he helped me too, because we've all, well, everybody's helped me. You know, we found different things that came up that were really critical for funding. You have to prove your business address, okay? Some of this funding isn't eligible for people who work from home. You have to have a real brick and mortar. So you got to prove it. Your lease agreement, your utility bills. Even funding that allows you to have a home office, you still have to prove the utility bills and your rent, okay? Critical. PPP, for forgiveness. You have to prove that you paid your utility bills. You have to prove that you paid your rent if you're using that as part of your PPP forgiveness calculation, all right? You know, it's business insurance, okay? Business insurance is going to be needed to rent property, okay? Business insurance is going to be needed to maybe get bids and to get jobs, but business insurance has to be proved as well for lending. It may help to have a vendor list, okay, to prove that you have the influx of revenue or the projected revenue based on your vendor list. So you're a relatively new business, you've been doing this for 6 months, you need more money, you thought you could self-fund, but you've got a purchase order from somebody for the next 12 months, or you have a service contract. That information is going to show, I mean, it doesn't prove 100% certainty, but it does give credibility to the business plan and to the financial projections. Any technical license that you have, hairdresser, you know, plumber, technical licensing is really critical to have, okay? And I didn't put that in with the business entity. I'm keeping that separate because not everybody has that type of licensing. And then business plan and financial projections, okay? A business plan and your financial projections are always a live document. They're going to change. But what happened, you know, last year is not going to necessarily happen in the future. And what happened last year was so unique that hopefully it will never happen in the future. But you still have to have a COVID plan in your business plan now, okay? You have to have a strategy for that. And you have to show what the financials would be for your brick and mortar when you have to be at 50% capacity versus what you thought it was going to be when you were at 100% capacity. So those kind of documents are really important. Knowing that they're going to change, but having them somewhere, okay? And again, a business plan, whether you're a startup or a big expansion, needs to tell your story, and it needs to have the financial projections. So keep your first one, if you have one, in a file with all of these miscellaneous items so that you can go back to it and adapt it, okay? And then you need personal documentation, all right? Most of these loans and grants, you have to prove citizenship. So if you're not a citizen, a green card, passport, driver's license, resume. The resume goes back to the credibility, okay, of the candidate who is looking for a business loan. So my resume shows that for the last 15 years, I've been working as a CPA. Now I'm going to open a CPA firm. I'm a credible party, okay? I've come to, I timed it pretty well. I thought it's almost 10 o'clock. I've come to the checklist, okay? This is everything we talked about. And my recommendation is that you have at least 6 files in your main folder that has your business entity, your banking information, your historical taxes, your finances, and then you can put, you know, miscellaneous business and personal in your file. And these are all the things that we discussed. And I'm sure that there's something that's missing, but these are the main ones. If you have this arsenal in your computer, even if you don't even have digital, if you have hard copy, and you could just run to a scanner and scan everything, you will be, heads and shoulders above anybody else in getting your funding. Questions?
We had a couple questions about the certifications, but Mauricio kindly answered them in the chat. And we have one last question from Eric. Would you be able to show evidence of business insurance as a startup during the application process? Sort of chicken egg. Once working capital available, then premium can be paid.
So your insurance agent would most likely give you a quote. That's what they do. They give you a quote for what's going to be covered and what the price is going to be. So that would be, I think, sufficient. You're going to need to show that again if you've got a brick and mortar. So, that's probably it.
Any other questions? This is the time. People say fantastic. Thanks, Marilyn.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we were going to have more Q&A. I'm happy to go through any of these things, any personal experiences that you had that got you stuck. If anybody's applying for second draw of PPP, I can help you on that. I mean, our team can help you on that. And we do have some time. And I think that you should, I don't know if you want to open it up or if you want to do it through chat.
Yeah, I can stop the spotlight to you so we can show cameras to everybody. Someone is asking to go, sorry, Curtis is asking to go over the publication for the LLC process. If you want, you can go do that, but we can also share with you some documents that explain the process.
Yeah, you just have to, I mean, there's a template that you use. You go through a weekly paper and a daily paper. But I mean, I don't want to talk to that without having the documents in front of me.
Yeah. Curtis, we can, if you can share it directly in the chat with me, your email, I can make sure you receive the appropriate documentation for that. And then let's see, what else do we have here? Will there be financials workshop? Oh, we have to plan for it.
Okay, I'm sorry, did I do something wrong?
No, you're good.
So we have had financial workshops, and Sue, I don't know if we're going to do it another one. I think it was even taped. I mean, this
Okay.
is, I think
Marilyn,
one-on-one.
yeah, I would like to jump in, especially I want to make sure everyone hears this before people start jumping off. And by the way, Marilyn, this is outstanding, amazing checkoff list. It's perfect. I want to urge all of you to consider working with a business advisor at the Small Business Development Center. There's various ways in which you can access those services. One is you call our general number. You will be asked to leave your name, phone number, email, and we will get back to you within 24 hours. That will be a business advisor returning your call. That's it. You put your information in, a business advisor gets a hold of you. Also, we could put in some of the emails right now for Karina, Marilyn, Mauricio, Michael, Max. I mean, we have a good portion of our team is on right now, and you would be able to connect with them via email. I suggest for really refining your strategy for your business plan, strategic planning, cash flow projection, the best thing is to have the one-to-one consultation. We can't possibly do that with an audience of 65 people or even any type of group. We have to do that as a one-to-one. I do want to further mention that all of our services are confidential. That's an important word, confidential. So the advisors will give you confidential advice. You can speak to them confidentially, and we do not share your data information with anyone. So it is really an exceptional opportunity to make sure you are on the right track, which is our goal to do that. Thank you.